Hello, everybody. I'm here to give you guys an overview of Uranus moving into Taurus and also just another chance for us to take a look at 2025 as a bigger picture part of what's going on in this process of collective transformation. So let's start with Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini. This takes place on the 7th of July, 7/7/2025. It just so happens that July is a 16 universal month in numerology. And the number 16 is often associated with challenges and transformation. The Tower card is what's the number 16. If you're into tarot, number 16 is the Tower card. And if you know anything about the Tower card, it's a little bit of a scary card, but it's actually a very fortunate card. There's usually a lightning bolt, very Uranian, and there's somebody falling out of a tower, as if coming through, going through, being forced through a process of transformation. But if you work with tarot, you know that all of that is for the better good. All that process is just like helping us to let go of old ways so that we can step into new ways. And so I want to spend this video talking about a couple of these themes so that we can really get a sense of, oh, everything that's happening right now in our world is actually right on time. And it's just also worth noting that 16 is the Tower card. This Tower card in tarot is ruled by Uranus. And now Uranus is coming into the sign of Gemini on the 7th of July. So sevens and 16s and good fortune galore. Um, it's worth for us to think about also. I've been talking a lot about how all the outer planets are changing signs. So we had Pluto and Neptune. We also have Saturn and Jupiter, and Uranus is the last of these. And the outermost three are the generational planets: Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And so Uranus is really bringing a bang. And if we think about Uranus's energy, it is a lightning bolt. If Neptune is magnetic, Uranus is just electric, and it's very much transformational energy. And I like to think of Uranus, if I sum it up, if you listen to my podcast, you are the high technology you seek. But the keywords around Uranus are often change, technology, revolution. And there's a lot of ways that could go. But it's worthwhile to think about all these things happening in a larger bubble of time and space. On the 7th of July, that's when we're going to get our first little taste of what it means to have Uranus in the sign of Gemini. And I'll talk about some past events to give us a sense of what that means. But it's also worth us to realize that, Pluto in Aquarius started last year, and that's a big deal. All the outer planets, especially Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are subtle energy, and outer planets always win. And Pluto is the outermost of those planets. And Pluto moved into the sign of Aquarius. And it just so happens that Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So this is Uranus, and the events that we're going to see, and as we head into Uranus and get settled into Uranus and Gemini, are very much vibing with Pluto's mission of transformation. But Pluto in Aquarius is about transformation for the greater good of the collective. And Uranus is adding its dose, or helping us to add our dose of personal intuition. But when we think about the sign of Gemini, Gemini is the twins, and Gemini is going to help us I'm going to offer that the theme is here, help us to understand how to connect to the collective consciousness, how to really understand that we are all interconnected, that we are all like we're interwoven like a tapestry. I've said that before. The other thing that comes through with Uranus in the sign of Gemini is, if you were stranded on a desert island, if you've ever played that game, what would you bring if you were stranded on a desert island? You wouldn't want to be on a desert island with everybody who brought the same exact thing as you. Do you see that? You'd want to be with a bunch of interesting different people, because together that diversity is what makes the whole thing strong. So let's also check in for a second here, because Uranus is moving from Taurus into Gemini. And Taurus is a very slow moving sign. If Taurus is a shadow side, it doesn't like change. That's not even a shadow side, it just doesn't like change. It can be stubborn. So it's going to be a big shift for us to go from this sense of the things are the way they are My house is the way it's set up to be, and Uranus is going to come in as it's coming into Aries. Uranus is and Uranus is in its fall in Taurus. It's a very uncomfortable position for Uranus. Uranus is going to do a lot better in Aries. Aries is about our personal empowerment. It's the I am Mars energy, and Uranus is going to really help us to tap into, here's the word, we are the high technology we seek. We are the change. And it's our consciousness. Uranus is mutable masculine air. This is about thought forms. This is about revolutionary thought forms, revolutionizing thinking. Uranus has an 84-year cycle. It spends 7 years in each sign, roughly. It's it's an even orbit. Compare that to Neptune. Neptune has a 165-year cycle, spends twice as much time, 14 years in every sign. And then compare that to Pluto. Pluto has a 248-year cycle that is elliptical, which means it doesn't spend, it spends between 11 and a half and 30 and a half years in a sign, which is why I was saying Pluto in Aquarius is actually even a bigger deal. And then we all know about Saturn return. Saturn's cycle is roughly 30 years. So every 2.5 or 3 years, Saturn changes sign. And Jupiter is a 12-year cycle. So every year it changes sign. To give you a sense of why I'm kind of even focusing more on the outermost generational planets of Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, because I believe that those are even more powerful. And so I mentioned that, Uranus isn't particularly comfortable in the sign of Taurus. It's going to be a lot more quick-witted and forward momentum and change in the sign of Aries, but that change is also revolutionary. I'll get to some of those themes. I furrow my brow, but don't worry, because the bigger picture is it's all going to be great. It's also worth noting that whenever a planet changes signs, especially the outermost planets, at the very end and the very beginning, the anaretic degrees are when that planet is the most powerful. So we're already feeling the Uranian nature. And if anything, we're feeling a little bit like Taurus about it. I don't want to change. I don't want to let go. I like my creature comforts. I like the way things are. Do we have to go through this? And then when Uranus goes into Aries, it's all going to feel a little bit different. And I think it's going to be, for those of us that are interested in higher consciousness and evolutionizing the evolution of our intuition, there's going to be so many cool downloads is the word that I've used in the past, but it's almost like coming online. Connections are going to be made. We're going to just have this visual, tactile, energetic sense that we're interconnected, and it's going to start to pop itself into reality in ways that humanity hasn't seen for quite some time. And I'll go through in a second some of the themes that what last time Uranus was in the sign of Gemini, but for right now, let's also think about the year of 2025. And some astrologers will look at 2025 in terms of quarters, and these aren't like financial quarters. These aren't hard and fast quarters. This is the first quarter is really January to March, and that was known as the retrograde quarter. And I didn't talk about it too much because it was pretty mundane, but that was when Venus and Mars were retrograde. So really it was encouraging us to review and to look back and to see what we value and to put a stake in the ground for the things that are really important to us. And it was a lot about Venus and Mars, or a lot about interpersonal 3D world. They're planets that we can see with the human eye. And the quarter we're in right now is the second quarter. We're at the tail end of the second quarter. The second quarter is some people talk about it as the change quarter. Precisely what it sounds like. We're in the midst of a big old sense of changing. Multiple outer planets are changing signs. The next quarter is going to be August through September, October-ish. That's going to be the minor triangle quarter. And I've talked a lot or a little bit, depending on how much you listen to what I have to say, about all the outer planets, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, have been doing this lovely dance. They've been sextiling and trining each other. They've been communicating with each other. So as we're being ushered into this time of transformation, the most powerful planets, it's like all the elders are on the phone, making sure all the little kids are supported, and all the resources are needed, and all the ways to help guide us are happening. So that minor triangle reaches its peak during August and September and a little bit of October. So if we want to, if we, I talked about the yod, the finger of God that happened this last new moon, where we're going to be ushered by a hand and force that's bigger than our own. We're definitely going to be feeling those vibes during those months. And the final quarter is called the water trine quarter, and that's kind of end of October through December, and that's sort of highlighted by Jupiter in Cancer forming a trine with Saturn and Neptune. And I'll get to that later, but I wanted us to I wanted to say all that to help us to really get the sense that it's okay. It's not just okay, it's precisely perfect to be where we're at right now. Astrology predicts this. So let's take a look finally as we can try to put our finger on what Uranus in Gemini is about. There are some themes: revolutionary communication. Uranus is about revolution. Uranus is about quick change. Uh, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So it's communication, new ways of communication, also new ways of communication carrying radical new ideas, also ideological breakthroughs. So Gemini rules our thoughts, ruled by Mercury. So this is when a lot of big ideas, the ideas that many of us hold dear, were birthed. There's also, every planet, every sign has a shadow side. So there's also this temptation, and that we will see it, to experience duality and division. So Gemini, if you look at the sign of the twins, there's two lines, and many people picture the twins are facing outward, showing that they're very distinct ways of looking, polarized thinking. But I would like to offer that the other aspect of Gemini is Gemini wants to talk to everybody at the party. Gemini wants, when we're stranded on a desert island, Gemini wants all the people with all their cool and different ideas, and each one of their choices is going to make that time on that desert island even more, not just manageable, but enjoyable. But the shadow side is duality and division. And so there could be this sense of societal splits. So let's look for a moment at some of these times when Uranus was in the sign of Gemini. The last time that happened was 1941 to 1949, World War II. Uranus entered Gemini just before the US entered the war. And then that also encompassed D-Day. It encompassed the founding of the United Nations, the start of the Cold War. Another time when Uranus before that was in Gemini was in 1858 to 1866. That was the American Civil War. But that was also the Emancipation Proclamation. It was the rise of newspapers and mass media. It was the transcontinental telegraph. These are all major advancements in communication. And while there was the division, there was also this massive leap forward. And then the time before that, when Uranus was in Gemini, was 1774 to 1781. And the American Revolution was right in the middle of that, 1775 to 1783. And that was the Boston Tea Party, the First Continental Congress, the Declaration of Independence. So I wanted to share all that to say that I think for those of us that are, energetically sensitive, even if you're not, it's palpable that we're going through something that is a time of a big shift. But I wanted to offer this as an interesting lens. Use the lens if you want to use it, leave the lens if it doesn't fit for you. But for me, I really like astrology, and I've said this before, because it gives me a sense of comfort that it's not out of control. And it's not necessarily within my control either, but it helps me release the need and the thought that I have to figure out a way to blah 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 blah. And the same thing happens when I do birth chart readings for people. They hear what I have to say, and if you've had your chart read, you probably have had this experience. You're like, oh, I'm not crazy. It's just that's the way the planets were when I took my first breath. That's the reality that I knew. And so I love the idea of thinking about the energy of the cosmos is giving us the vibe, literally and figuratively, of what we're being bathed in, what we're being steeped in, what we're being soaked in. And if anything, I hope that this helps you to open your heart and keep your third eye open, and be excited might be a stretch, but I am excited about the revolutionary change. And revolutionary change does not mean that we have to go into a physical war. The other thing that I've said before about these cycles is take this in an even bigger lens, the yuga cycles of time, 23, 24,000 year cycles of time where humanity descends into darkness and comes back up. And this all has to do with how close the sun is to Sirius. The Sirius is the central sun to our sun, which gets its information from the galactic center, which filters information. And the closer the sun and Sirius get, the more humanity thrives. So we're coming up and out of the dark ages. So those last events that I mentioned, the American Revolution, the Civil War, World War II, they were getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And now we're not in that. We're in a similar energetic uh, we're being steeped in the energy, but human consciousness has already evolved. So there is no repeating of history. There is a similar theme, but because humanity, especially those who have chosen to open up to the energies and be interested in raising their vibration and being a part of a really wonderful, loving thing happening on this planet, I think that we can know that this is we're gonna move through this, and this is gonna be an expansive time, and it doesn't have to be afraid of repeating the past. All right, have a blessed month of July, and I'm super grateful for you. Take care.